Feel the power.
Oh, I can feel it.
Our moment of triumph approaches. It's
GrokTALK.
This is a coalition of New Hampshire taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is a repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested, riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at gerardatlarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
Welcome to GrokTALK on Saturday, December 5th, 2015. Here's a few short stories to help fill the time. The New Hampshire State Ballot Law Commission on Tuesday quickly threw out a former New Hampshire Republican Party chairman's challenge to Donald Trump's eligibility to be on the GOP First in the Nation primary ballot, according to WMUR News 9 in Manchester. Commission Chairman Brad Cook asked Fergus Cullen, the former NHGOC chairman, "Why are you here? This isn't about whether we like Donald Trump. If Republican enough is what this commission had to do, heaven forbid we'd be here all day." "You were challenging someone's filing," Cook said. "This commission is not the forum for speeches or electioneering or advancing any other candidate. If you have any information that he is not, in fact, a Republican, then share it with us." Cullen replied, "I do not have that information." The commission immediately voted to dismiss the challenge. The irony has not gone unreported. Check GrantedGrok.com for our take. Geraldo Rivera has just lost his talk radio show at New York City broadcasting giant WABC. Rivera says he had a handshake deal with ousted Cumulus media chief John Dickey, which the new management won't honor. Ched Lopez, the market manager for Cumulus, told Radio Inc., "We offered Geraldo a new renewal commensurate with the value of his show, which he regretfully chose not to accept." Cumulus gave Rivera the axe on Thanksgiving Eve. Not to worry, Geraldo will still be gas-bagging the liberal narrative over at Fox News. The New Hampshire Union Leader is reporting that in a town hall meeting at an American Legion post, Republican presidential candidate John Kasich fielded a couple of questions about how the U.S. should go about defeating Islamic State terrorists. "I've been very critical of one person who's been criticizing Hispanics and Muslims," he said, referring to the GOP frontrunner. "Let's watch our rhetoric. Let's help those who want to engage with us." Note to Governor Kasich, the person in question has been polling exponentially higher than you with primary voters, registered voters, fat kids, skinny kids, kids who climb on rocks. Probably because you are seeking help from those in the establishment with whom you want to engage and not regular American taxpayers. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Just look for Granite Grok, and be sure to listen to past programs on Spreaker, Stitcher, iTunes, TuneIn, and iHeartRadio.
Steve McDonald here. Ever notice how some Democrats get all worked up about photo ID? No, not the ID you use to access all those government services like unemployment, Social Security, welfare, and even Obamacare. I'm talking about photo ID to vote. And I don't think it's the photo part. Democrats love photos. President Obama's got a real nice one of himself with the pretty blonde Danish prime minister that he took while his wife Michelle was sitting right next to him scowling. So if it's not the photo, it must be the ID. But the only reason to object to the ID would be if you were either not who you said you were, or you didn't live where you said you lived, which might explain why some Democrats get so upset when you ask for one. I say some Democrats because a recent poll in New Hampshire reported that almost 60% of registered Democrats and 75% of all registered voters thought voter ID was a good idea. So if it's not the New Hampshire residents, or even Democrats who oppose voter ID, it must be the kind that can't get elected unless they can get people to vote in your town who have no business voting there. I'm Steve McDonald for Granite Grok, and we'll keep shining the light on them for you.
From the CNHT studios in Concord, New Hampshire, just a few blocks from the New Hampshire State House, this is
GrokTALK.
2, 1.
We'd like to welcome you to another edition of GrokTALK, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GrokTALK.com. We are your feared, extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio microphone stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for more news and opinion you could only get from GrokTALK.com.
GrokTALK.
All right, well, we're coming to you live, finally, from our Third World Redoubt in the just got power back capital of Concord, New Hampshire. Been an interesting day. We got in here about 20 minutes after 8. The power went out and it didn't come back on until 9:45, so we didn't even start the show until now. We did manage to get some stuff broadcast, and for those of you who were paying attention and patiently waited, we very much appreciate that. So we're going to get right to it. We have a couple of guests we're going to be calling today. The first of whom is, I got to go find my notes because here we go, is Kieran Lalor, who was a high school social studies teacher, served with the U.S. Marines in Operation Iraqi Freedom. He is the founder of Iraq Vets for Congress and the author of This Recruit, a first-hand account of Marine Corps boot camp written while knee-deep in the mayhem of Parris Island. He ran as the Republican New York 19th Congressional District candidate in 2008 and is currently a member of the New York State Assembly representing the 105th District. We'd like to welcome to the program, please, Kieran Lalor. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Good. Very good. Thank you so much for coming on the show with us.
Hey, Kieran, I got a question right out of the gate. Parris Island, 1st Battalion, 2nd Battalion, 3rd Battalion, which one?
I was in the 1st Battalion.
Oh, well.
Oh, well, you mustn't see. I know that you're a 3rd Battalion guy just by saying that, because my brother and my father all the meatheads out in 3rd Battalion. I know about that.
Yeah. Simplify.
Yes. You were,
That's Rick, by the way.
Yeah, this is Skip Murphy, and thanks for coming on the show. That was Chief Warrant Officer Rick Olson of the U.S. Marine Corps, who served as the armorer at the esteemed Parris Island to which my son went.
Absolutely.
So, Semper Fi, and thank you for your service from a double Blue Star dad.
Outstanding.
All right. Well, we have you on the show to talk about some foreign policy stuff. Obviously, there's a lot been going on recently that has to do with foreign policy. And you were the New York State co-chair for Carly Fiorina, and you wanted to give us a little information about how she differentiates herself from the other candidates. Why don't you first frame your and her opinion about the priorities, and then we'll talk about what she brings to the table that the other candidates don't.
Absolutely. I mean, I think we shouldn't need to be reminded that national security is the first priority of the federal government, but we certainly have been reminded of it in recent days and recent weeks, and that is something that, sometimes we get distracted by social issues and other issues, but let's face it, the federal government exists largely in part to make sure that our country is secure. So that's the number one priority, and I would say 1A is the economy, because the stronger we are economically, the stronger we are in terms of being able to defend ourselves and project our interests around the world.
All right, so your candidate of choice, Carly Fiorina. We've interviewed Carly a couple times. We've had her at a bunch of events. She has made herself very available to this program and to people in this state. What, again, speaking as an advocate for her, what do you think are her priorities? Be as specific as you can, and go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, what I think Carly brings to the table that the other candidates do not is she checks all the key boxes, in my opinion. Number one, she has very serious high-level executive experience. Number two, that experience comes from the private sector. I want someone in there with private sector experience, someone who's been in government their whole life, is of that culture, and it's going to be very hard to shape and fix and drag that culture into reform if you're of that culture. So she did not make her career in the government. I think that is a key thing. She's a movement conservative. She didn't become a conservative for this election because the winds are blowing in the conservative direction. If you look at her life, if you look at her, the causes she's fought for and what she's standing up for now, it's very clear she is a principled conservative, and not everyone in this race can say those things. She also has some key government experience. when the CIA had major problems after 9/11, after not finding WMD in Iraq, they brought in outside people from the private sector to have an external advisory board, and they asked Carly Fiorina to chair that board. We live in an increasingly technological world. One of the reasons that the threat of radical Islam is coming home to the United States is technology. We know that the terrorists, in some cases, are ahead of us in terms of their ability to encrypt their communication. And I like someone from the tech sector to really lead us into the 21st century of national security. And she's independent. She's not doesn't owe favors. She's not part of the machine. She's not from the Beltway. And she speaks her mind. And if you look, even in the last couple of days, she was, if not the first, one of the first high-level people on the national stage to say, I don't think now is the time to disarm law-abiding citizens. She, before the FBI, 24 hours before the FBI said that what happened in San Bernadino was a terrorist attack, Carly Fiorina said on national TV, if it walks like a duck, it looks like a duck, it probably is a duck. It has all the hallmarks of an Islamic terrorist attack. And I like that directness and bluntness. And being good on the issues and having a great resume is outstanding, but you also need a great messenger to carry that message. She's a great messenger. The reason we know Carly Fiorina's name is because she walked into that debates unknown, and she kicked butt in those early debates with her communication skills, and that is important. You know, the right conservatives get beat all the time because we are not always the best messengers and we're not great communicators. But Carly Fiorina is a great communicator, so she can climb into the arena of ideas and fight the conservative fight, and that is incredibly important to me.
Mike?
So I get that, and she is a great communicator, and she was terrific in the debates. And before one of the debates, Van Jones, of all people, said, you know, Carly Fiorina has a mind so sharp it should be licensed as a weapon, which is terrific. My question to you, Kieran, is what happens in between? Because she's unable to maintain altitude between those debate performances, and that's really sad because I have a very short list of candidates that I like, and she's one of them, and I'm kind of disappointed that she doesn't get more traction in between the debates, and what can the campaign do or what can she do to improve that?
Well, the national polls are just that, national polls. If you look at the polls from 60 days before Iowa, back in, say, 2008, Rudy Giuliani was in first place with about 30%. Fred Thompson was in second place, and I can barely even remember those campaigns. If you go back to 2012, Mitt Romney wasn't leading at this point. Someone else was. Escaping me who was leading at this point, but he wasn't leading at this point either. And if you look at Carly Fiorina, no one knew who she was until August. So she was a complete unknown. Some pollsters weren't even polling her name until August. And now she's in a 14 or 15 person race. She's in sixth place in a field of governors, in a field of national celebrities, in a field of U.S. senators. So from where she was just a few months ago when she started her campaign to where she is now is good. She's investing in the infrastructure in the key states, boots on the ground. And, sometimes in media you say if it leads, it bleeds. If something is outrageous, it gets a lot of coverage. And Carly Fiorina is a very serious person. She doesn't say anything bombastic or outrageous. She has good ideas. She puts them forth very methodically, which is what you want in a president. But it's not necessarily what you want if you're a cable news producer to grab headlines and drive eyeballs to the TV screen. So she suffers from not being bombastic and saying outrageous things. She suffers from being disciplined and methodical in her approach, which might not be the greatest thing for the polls in December, but I think it will serve her well when people actually go and cast votes in February and March in the primary states.
That's fine. I'd like to see a much smaller debate stage. I think we should have Ted Cruz, Donald Trump, Marco Rubio, Chris Christie for entertainment value, and Carly Fiorina, because they're the top debaters. I think we just junk all the rest, frankly.
Well, that reminds me of one of the key ingredients to the Fiorina campaign. She's 100% right when she says she is Hillary Clinton's worst nightmare, and in your heart of hearts you want to see me debate Hillary Clinton. I would love to see Carly Fiorina dissect and bisect Hillary Clinton on the national stage a week before a national election. And we know it's going to be Hillary. If it's not Hillary, it means that Hillary's been indicted and it's some afterthought candidate that they've thrown in there. So I think it's a good bet it's going to be Hillary. And Carly Fiorina is absolutely Hillary Clinton's worst nightmare. And that's the task. The task isn't to get, the highest plurality of supporters in the national poll in December. The task is winning the election and saving our country from the slow descent and actually ever-quickening descent that we're in right now. And who's the best person to do that? It has to be somebody who can beat Hillary Clinton. We know Carly Fiorina would dismantle Hillary Clinton in a way that no one else could.
Yeah, this is Skip, by the way, and thanks for coming on the show again.
I don't know who's talking. I'm hearing all kinds of different voices.
Yeah, there's actually four of us here.
That was Mike, and now it's Skip. Go on, Skip.
Okay.
You mentioned not leading in the polls. Unfortunately, I think this time around, we saw it in the last cycle, we're seeing it again here. The national polls and here in New Hampshire, certainly there's a much renewed interest in those polls because we're seeing them coming out almost every day, every other day. And here in the state of New Hampshire, the first in the nation primary, and certainly out in Iowa with the caucuses, it almost seems like the polling is becoming more important than the primary and the caucus. The polling hasn't quite overcome those two entities yet, but it seems to be on the verge of it. And the media with these polls, and I think the polls are being done mostly for the media's benefit to be able to say who's doing what and when, to be able to say we will determine who this is going to be. Don't you think that when you say that the polling it doesn't matter at this point, I tend to disagree that it's as lowered as what you think, because it really is determining who gets on the stage, for at least at the very least, and who's getting the media buzz. And I think Steve, the point is still a valid one. She does well in the poll on the debates. The polls go up. After the debate, they fall. And I'm going to ask again: what is this plan to get up there and stay up there? Because pretty soon the field's going to get winnowed, and if she stays at where she's at, she's going to get winnowed as well.
Yeah. Well, if you look at Trump, he has a little less than 1/3. No matter what poll you look at, he's a little bit below 1/3 of the vote, which means 2/3 of the vote is divided among 13 or 14 other candidates. All of those candidates, many of those candidates will drop out after Iowa and New Hampshire because of a poor showing, and their support, whether it's 3% or 4% or 5%, has to go somewhere. So that's going to happen. And the other thing I'll say with the polls is you have to look at the devil in the details. Sometimes they're just polling any Republicans in the state or nationally, and they're not necessarily a likely Republican primary voter, and that's the key. Who turns out is what determines an election. And I know for running for office and winning a primary, I didn't care about every Republican in my district. I identified the Republicans who were likely to turn out in the primary election, and that's what I focused on. So if the poll is not of likely Republican primary voters, it really has very little credibility. And what the Fiorina people are doing is, and what they've invested in, is infrastructure in the key states, developing lists of supporters who they can turn out come primary day. And that is the key, who you can turn out, identifying them and then turning them out on the day of the election. And that's something the national poll is never going to reflect.
Kieran, we're going to take a quick break. Stay on the line. We'll come back and have some more conversation. Stay tuned. This is GrokTALK.
This is a coalition of New Hampshire taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is a repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
Warning, this is not a safe space. I repeat, this is not a safe space.
GrokTALK.
All right, this is GrokTALK live most of the time from Concord, New Hampshire. Beautiful sunny day. Power is intermittent. Just like Venezuela, yes. We are on the phone with Kieran Lalor, who is a member of the New York State Legislature, get that word out, co-chair for Carly Fiorina in New York. And I wanted to kind of shift gears a little because it's not every day that we have somebody from the New York State Legislature on the phone. And you've had some interesting other events occurring in your area. Your House Speaker was indicted.
Like Massachusetts.
I didn't know if you wanted to talk about that for a couple minutes. We only have a few minutes left anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so this guy is, well, tell us. You know, you're there.
I was first elected in 2012, and I ran on a campaign that included reform, and the number one reform was getting Sheldon Silver, who had been the Assembly Speaker for 20 years, had been in the Assembly since the Gerald Ford administration, and that was job number one for reform was to get rid of this guy, at least get rid of him as the Speaker. It's an overwhelmingly Democratic body. There's 150 members of the New York State Assembly, and it's 112 Democrats to 38 Republicans, so we're outnumbered. So the Democrats kept electing Silver Speaker, but the U.S. Attorney, Preet Braha, bailed us out, indicted Silver back in January, and he was convicted of abusing his office. And the Silver case and corruption in my state legislature is very relevant to the national discussion about crony capitalism, because Silver was convicted. By the way, the Republican leader of the state Senate is on trial for corruption charges. He's very likely to be convicted. They had a better case against the Republican leader of the Senate, Dean Skelos, than they did Speaker Silver. And so the number one guy in each house is likely to be convicted this month. But it all boiled down to they abused their office, gave special tax breaks, special subsidies, good old-fashioned crony capitalism to their buddies, to their donors, in exchange for jobs for their kids, in exchange for referrals to their law firm. And everybody's scrambling now to say, well, what can we do to reform Albany? And there's these little ideas. The biggest reform for New York State and for the country to get rid of corruption and crony capitalism is take away the ability of the legislatures to spend a lot of money on their friends. If you don't send the money to Albany or Washington in the first place, they can't buy off their big supporters. And then, in fact, their big supporters will go away, because if the big company that wants the state subsidy or the big tax break, special loopholes, if they can't get that anymore, they're not going to. There's no reason to even do business with these legislatures, and the corruption will go away. So it's the same thing in Washington, D.C. Simplify the tax code is a key part of the Fiorina message, a 3-page tax code. The pages and pages and pages and pages of the tax code at the federal level are an example of crony capitalism, because there's special loopholes, because a lobbyist got his loophole in there for his company or his industry. But if we take away all that thing and simplify things, and take the money that we send to Washington and Albany and let people keep it, and don't send it to our capitals to be spent by our politicians, the corruption problem goes away. And by the way, the economy gets a lot better, because I think the individual New Yorker and the individual American knows how to spend their money much better than some politician or bureaucrat.
That's you're singing to the choir here. I was just thinking when I heard about the situation in New York State, and I used to live in New York for from just after birth until I was in my mid to late 20s, so I'm out by Rochester.
Where did you live?
Rochester, outside of Rochester in Henrietta, New York.
Okay, nice.
And a little bit more conservative part of the state. Used to be, not anymore really so much, because there really aren't any. But I'm reading about Silver and all these other things, and I'm thinking about Massachusetts, which is just to the south of us, where they've had like 3 or the last 4 of their speakers of the House indicted and sent to prison. Chicago, where they can't elect a governor who doesn't go to jail. These are all these Democrat strongholds where they've been in power for so long. That these guys get away with this garbage for years and years and years. How deep do you think the problem goes? I mean, you're obviously relatively new to the legislature, but you're familiar with it. You've been there. You go to work there every day, and you see what happens and how people work. Is this going to get any better, or are they going to need to indict a lot more people?
I don't think it's going to get better, and I'll just tell you, when Silver was indicted, the Democrat members of the Assembly rallied around him and didn't want to remove him as Speaker. They said, innocent until proven guilty, and but then pressure from the editorial pages and people in the state got so much that they had to remove him as Speaker back in the winter. And they replaced him with the Democrat chairman of Bronx County. And at the time I said, nothing says reform like having a party boss from the Bronx as the new Speaker of the New York State Assembly. So, meet the new boss, same as the old boss.
Oh, yeah.
I'm pessimistic that with the current voter patterns in New York and being very New York City dominated, half our population is New York City, so half our legislature is New York City, and there's massive dependency, there's massive corruption at all levels, especially in the 5 boroughs. Something that would have to change radically there.
To give you a relevant example from New Hampshire, which doesn't really have any of that, we back in, I don't remember if it was 2008 or 2010, we had a Democrat running for the House who got elected while he was in jail. He was sitting in jail, but he was still on the ballot, and the Democrat voters, not necessarily urban voters, still elected him while he was in jail. So I don't know if it's just, what is it about the Democrats? Man, they just get behind their people.
Because they're all communist crooks to begin with.
New Hampshire's own Eugene Debs.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy.
I'll tell you, we've had an interesting conversation on some local radio shows, and the interviewer has said, I know a lot of your Democrat colleagues, and they're nice people, and they seem like decent people, and they want to help people. So how were they all part of this, electing such a known corrupt speaker year after year? And my answer is liberalism gets back to the ends justify the means. Mm-hmm. So in the case of the, seemingly decent Democrat lawmakers in my state, they say, well, if I want to help a little old lady down the street with her, Medicare issues, I have to make a deal with the devil and elect this guy and bow to this guy because that's the only way I'm going to get any support for my district and be able to help with my people. And that is what liberalism boils down to. That's all it's the ends justify the means. There is very little integrity if you believe in that philosophy of the ends justifying the means. And I think that's the biggest, fundamental problem with the left.
Now, Kieran, we got about a minute left, and don't spill anything. Thank you. We got about a minute left. How do people get a hold of you? We have listeners in New York, and how do they get a hold of you and the campaign out there?
Yeah, absolutely. My website is kmlny.com. That's my initials for Kieran Michael Lalor, kmlny.com. I'm on Facebook and Twitter. You can find me just by typing in my name, Kieran Lalor.
All right.
I'm out there.
Well,
in the cyber world.
Well, thank you so much for taking time to talk to us.
Keep fighting the good fight
and
Semper Fi.
Yep, good luck out there.
Semper Fi. I'm always happy to talk to members of the Marine family.
Well, we got one here.
So you feel free to plug my book, too.
I will plug your book,
5 mouths to feed.
That's
okay. I'll plug my book, all right?
This guy, he's the head of a range, a gun club, a hunting club, and we all, thanks to him, get to go out and shoot at the range there. And so without him, who knows what we'd be doing. So, but thanks again, and you have a great weekend.
All right, you too.
All righty, bye-bye. All right, Kieran Lalor. And you taking your headset off and not telling me, and you don't have to call him yet. You got a minute. We are going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we will have. I got to go find my notes. Where'd my notes go? I lost my notes. Everybody said we're still on the air, Having private conversations. That's just what we do here. I lost my page. There we go. We're going to have Dan Gainor on. He is the Vice President of Business and Culture at the Media Research Center. We're going to talk about the media and its response to things like Paris and the recent shootings in San Bernadino. So stay tuned. We will be right back.
This is a coalition of New Hampshire taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is a repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested, riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at gerardatlarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
3, 2, 1.
We'd like to welcome you to another edition of GrokTALK, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GrokTALK.com. We are your feared, extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio microphone stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for more news and opinion you could only get from GrokTALK.com.
GrokTALK.
All right, we are GrokTALK from our third world bastion with rolling blackouts and all kinds of cool stuff in the capital, Concord, New Hampshire. Thanks again for tuning in. Again, many thanks to Kieran Lalor, Marine, ran for Congress, legislator in New York, a Republican legislator in New York. Holy cow, boy, what a job that is.
They call him assemblyman.
Assemblyman? Yes, assemblyman. Okay, so enough of that. Our next guest is the Vice President of Business and Culture for Media Research Center. He's a veteran editor with more than 2 decades of experience in print and online media, including as an editor at the Washington Times, the Baltimore News American. You can find his work all over the internet. I would like to welcome to the program Mr. Dan Gainor. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, and welcome to the Post-Climate Conference America.
I was gonna say I had a couple of quick notes about things we're going to talk about. We had the holiday display of religious bigotry from the press. We have the jihad deniers blaming the climate deniers for terrorism. We have, and this was my favorite note, the media onset coverage of the Lifetime Network movie Cop 21 in Paris. And, of course, if anything happens anywhere near Planned Parenthood, the media's got to find out how close it was. So,
well, and also, I mean, today, because you guys are closer to the nexus of evil, i.e. the New York Times building, they came out with the first front-page editorial they've had in 95 years. And, of course, it's about guns, because everyone in America realizes that when you have radical Islamic terrorists come into your country, one of whom not from your country, when they come into your country and arm themselves with IEDs and guns and try to kill people and kill a massive number of people, leading police on a chase, et cetera, and clearly have planned other attacks, then it's an issue of gun control. Because, that's really, and then you saw, of course, 2 days straight of the incompetent, whack job, lunatic cowards at the New York Daily News, to the point where they bashed prayer on their front page one day, and the next day they called Wayne LaPierre, whether you agree with guns or not, the head of an organization of Americans doing something they are legally allowed to do. They called him a terrorist.
Yeah, we noticed that, and one thing that we call ourselves here, Dan, and this is Skip talking, we are the safest podcast here in New Hampshire for obvious reasons.
We're all carrying right now.
Yes.
No, we are.
And when and I just have to wonder about the media, including Fox News, that just in breathless terms they say, they had 2,000 rounds of 9mm and 500 rounds of .223, and all of us are sitting here going, these guys are pikers.
Well, I mean, what they don't understand is if you go to the range, even if you're a rank amateur, you're dropping a couple hundred rounds as you go in the range. If you're just like going in, okay, that if you buy in bulk, because of course it's gotten increasingly difficult to buy ammo in certain places. Yep. I live in Maryland. The Dick's Sporting Goods near me stop selling ammunition, stop selling guns, stop selling everything.
Wow.
It's difficult to buy. So a lot of people buy stuff by mail.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I know a lot of Maryland gun owners who buy stuff by mail at their offices, especially if if their offices aren't in Maryland. Maryland being a tiny state, a lot of people work over the line in Delaware, Pennsylvania, D.C., and Virginia. And I know a lot of gun owners who have their stuff shipped there because they don't really want the state of Maryland monitoring their acquisitions.
One of the observations that I made yesterday is in the wake of the San Bernadino terrorist attack. They went Aloha Snack Bar on everybody and shot 14 people, wounded 14 other. The DHS has this public service announcement out how to deal with an active shooter attack, and they have 3 things: run, hide, fight back. So I'm looking at the fight back port component. I'm going, grab a fire extinguisher, grab a hairspray can or whatever's near you and use it as a weapon. Well, wait a minute. Why don't I just use a gun? See, I mean, they never thread their logic together.
Well, they do. They don't believe you should have a right to a gun. I do love it. Like, where you get a baseball bat? Because I saw those drawings. Like, okay, where are you supposed to get a baseball bat? I don't have a baseball bat in my office.
But every classroom should have a baseball bat.
If you read the New York Times editorial, this is the media speaking. They're saying that Americans should give up, and they don't even make it clear what types of guns they want us to give up, but we should give them up as for the sake of our other fellow citizens. The heck with that Second Amendment. The heck with the First Amendment. I mean, is there an amendment in the Constitution that the left now likes?
No.
Because I don't know what it is.
Only when it serves their own purpose. But you got it exactly right, and I know that you guys have this on your page. Geraldo Rivera of Fox News, formerly of WABC, said the Second Amendment is stupid. He thinks it's that, and there's a lot of folks out there on the left media that have said it's an anachronism. It's no longer suitable for evolved people, as if I wish to paraphrase and shorten up what they want to say.
Well, I mean, if you go by Ezra Klein, he thinks, it's just an old document. I mean, that's the general lefty attitude about the whole Constitution, and even more about the founders. I mean, this is part and parcel of a universal strategy to overturn everything the country was founded on. They're going around in a conscious war against anybody who has some sort of politically incorrect belief now in history. They're even going after liberal icons like Woodrow Wilson. So Wilson,
I'm fine with that.
But for the wrong reason. I mean,
I was going to say, except of course that if they go after Wilson, they go after Jefferson, Washington, etc. They want to get everybody, because they don't believe that the founding of America was a good thing. So you go after the founders, go after the founding document. They go after freedom of religion, freedom of speech. Remember, freedom of press. These are the same idiots on the left that were trying to get the FCC into American newsrooms to decide how news was decided. That's positively Soviet.
No, it really is. And, one of the things, and I have to say for full disclosure, Dan GrokTALK has endorsed Ted Cruz for president overall amongst all of us writers. But the thing about the Trump candidacy is his utter disdain for political correctness. Now, we've been fighting that fight here for years as far as being, basically a loudmouth on the right side of the aisle in politics. We don't particularly care what the Democrats or the progressives call us. We just laugh at them. They have no idea what to take about that. But we see that now at the national level with Trump, basically making fun of the media and anybody else who makes political correctness attacks on him. And my question is the left starting to figure it out that, unlike Alinsky's rules for radicals, make them feel that you have more power than what you really do? We're starting to say you have no power over us because we're rejecting your words.
Well, I think what's happened, we've seen two candidates this election do something we used to call disintermediate.
Yep.
As one of those early internet terms. They don't need the media. Donald Trump's bigger than the media.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a big enough celeb, and I read a really good piece that's too wonky to go into detail here, but he's just talking about how celebrities and big brands and big organizations like the NFL or Major League Baseball or anything like that, they don't need the media anymore. They have their own media. And so Donald Trump is the same way. He doesn't need the media. He says something on Twitter, it gets retweeted thousands of times, millions of people see it. Why does he need the New York Times? Why give the New York Times access? I tweeted out earlier today that the GOP's response, because obviously a lot of the GOP candidates are pro-gun. GOP response from those candidates or anybody who is pro. If there were any pro-gun people on the Democratic side, I'd say this too. But anybody who's pro-gun should say we're not dealing with the New York Times anymore.
Yeah.
We're going to cut off the reporters. We're not going to invite them to events. We're going to pull their press credentials. They're not going to be able to go into debates, even to the presidential debates. The GOP policy should be, no, you want them at the presidential debate, and there won't be a presidential debate.
No, I think you're absolutely right, Dan, with the rise of the new media and the ability to...
Sorry.
Rick, our former Marine, is passing around a picture. We will have to post that, except blur out a little bit of that for rule number 1, with Donald Trump and a firearm. But with the rise of the new media, there's so many different ways to get the message out that the old media, all you have to, and you guys talk about it all the time, the plunge in subscription rates, the plunge in ad revenue, and they still haven't gotten the idea that when you basically sneer and spit in the face of half of your potential audience, you're going to not get out as much.
But see, they don't care.
Mm-hmm.
I use this example because everybody is deluded to think that media people want to make money. They know they're going to make a certain amount of money. Whether it's Hollywood or news, they don't care. They want to push their agenda. So several years back, remember when the Lord of the Rings movies first came out?
Yep.
Enormously popular, built-in fan base, finally had the technology to make them look good. Everybody was thrilled. And, so around that time we got the Narnia movie, which is, again, built-in fan base, huge Christian metaphor, absolutely one of the most famous Christian writers of the age. And Hollywood's response to that movie, instead of copycatting it like it did the Lord of the Rings movie, Hollywood's response to Narnia was the Golden Compass.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to take a Christian metaphor movie, and our response, we got to appeal to that audience, is to do a movie where the characters all conspire to kill God.
Yeah, but the Golden Compass kind of tanked.
Yeah, the Dark Materials series is a 3-part series.
And I've read it.
They tried to hide the fact that it's a big atheist, anti-Christian, anti-Catholic, particularly anti-Catholic series. They tried to hide it because they wanted to make the sequels, and even then, people were too smart for them, so they never made the sequels. And that's Hollywood. They don't, and major media, the news media, are worse. Look at the New York Times. Do you honestly think that there's a person in America, the whole nation, who's going to change their opinion because the New York Times ran a front-page editorial saying, "Let's get guns"?
Well, not people of flyover country and those on the
No,
right.
but I mean, even in New York, even what they call the Acela corridor, Washington to Boston, is anybody going to change it? No. This was the pretentious, elite, urban, rich liberals speaking to the pretentious, elite, urban, rich liberals.
Yep, but nice way of putting it. But here's another thing.
I was hoping to come up with that to spell something, and I realized everything I started to come up with was something I couldn't say on radio. So
Okay, that's fine.
Here's the other observation that we've been making lately, and you guys do it well along with the Breitbart folks, is that you see these high-paid movie stars like Liam Neeson and Jennifer Lawrence, and most recently, who was the guy who... there's been a couple of other male actors who have basically berated their movies or berated their audiences. Folks like us who are Christian, gun-toting, religious, right-of-center traditional Americans, and they've been trashing us. And then they're starting to wonder, why aren't our movies doing all that well all of a sudden? For instance, the latest version of the Hunger Games, they're predicting that it basically is doing about 35% under what it should have because Jennifer Lawrence shot her mouth off.
Yeah.
Now, here's the old media covering this person because they're part of that old media, and we're seeing this, and it's like, let's self-destruct.
Well, they think, gone are the days when a Hollywood celeb could come out and say something and everybody go, "Oh yeah, that's brilliant. We all got to do that." Now, this is social media has driven a Grand Canyon-esque divide in America because no longer are the heads of either political party kind of running things and tamping down the more radical views of people on both sides. Now, all of us get to express our views. The media and both political parties hate that. But what has meant, though, is idiot views like those from Hollywood, Neeson, Jim Carrey, others, now they get trashed. And now the fans who, and I like Jennifer Lawrence, she's one of the few genuine people in Hollywood, but she also seems to genuinely hate me and everything I believe in.
Right.
And I thought The Hunger Games were very good movies, and I was going to go to the theater and see it. Now I'll watch it when it comes on cable.
There you go.
Because I already pay for that, and I got a big TV anyhow, so the heck with it.
Or $1.50 at Redbox, yeah.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, I'll go wait until it comes on part of my subscription. And I mean, remember, I critique media, so I've got every channel known to man.
Oh, I bet.
And I think that's become more common. It's interesting. The Black Lives Matter people are really angry at some of the African American celebrities because not all of them have come out and spoken on their issue the way they want them to. Because people like, and I believe, even though Beyonce follows one of the leaders, DeRay McKesson, on Twitter, she has not come out and made a big deal. Beyonce's a smarter businesswoman than DeRay McKesson. Mm-hmm. And so she doesn't want to offend a lot of her fans who might think otherwise. I mean, that's what it's become now. What is your career worth to you? Because you're going to alienate people. I've never understood it from a business perspective, but they don't care. And then it's particularly funny. I mean, at least Jennifer Lawrence was honest about this part, where she came out and said, she was angry about how women get paid less in Hollywood, but then pointed out that she's also a lousy negotiator, and that's a good tongue. It's like, well, then shouldn't that be the fault of your agent?
Yeah.
I mean, especially when you are young and beautiful and smart and really talented. I mean, when you like.
Oh, she is. She's an amazing actress. She really is.
But when you are that way and you're at the top of your game, shouldn't you demand more money?
I would think so.
I mean, all you can do is look in the trades and see what people are making. Say, oh yeah, he made $20 million. I want $25 for this movie. Oh, we're not going to pay that. Well,
it's like they say in the NFL, he got paid. You finally get that deal where you're at the peak of your game and you got somebody to pay you for the value of that experience and that ability, and then all of a sudden, that should happen in every job. You would think. Of course, the left doesn't like that, and the crazy people in the Hollywood left don't understand it. But hang on the line there, Dan. We're going to take a really short break. We'll come right back. Stay tuned. This is GrokTALK. We're talking to Dan Gainor from the Media Research Center.
This is the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is a repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested, riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
Warning, this is not a safe space. I repeat, this is not a safe space.
GrokTALK.
This is GrokTALK. We're on the phone with Dan Gainor from the Media Research Center. I have Rick Olson, Mike Rogers, Skip Murphy, and myself in the studio. We're running from 10 to noon today instead of the regular 9 to 11 because we lost power for an hour. There's a rhyme. Didn't even know I was going to be a poet. But we wanted to move on with Dan. Dan, I spend a lot of time visiting websites like realclimatescience.com and Anthony Watts, What's Up With That, and Climate Depot, and places like that, Ice Cap. We've had Joe DeLeo on the show many, many times, so we're pretty well versed in the whole climate thing. But the media, and this was one of the things we wanted to talk about, has a completely different perspective, and of course you guys are all on top of that stuff. Let's talk about the media and how they handle climate.
Well, first off, a shout out to my buddy Mark Morano from Climate Depot, just because Mark used to work for us, and he does
great.
such a fantastic job.
They have their movie coming out?
Yeah, he has. He's got his movie coming out, and I know there's a bunch of bunch of movie clips in there that he got from us.
Oh,
and
good.
I just saw him the other day, so I know that's going to be fantastic. And I wish I had the ducats to go to Paris to see that.
Yeah.
But I mean, this is an issue that the media have covered poorly. Oh, I think, let's see, what's a reasonable number of years? I think we're probably looking at about 125 years. And that's only because I haven't really researched much back further than that.
Mm-hmm.
For a point of perspective for people listening to the timeline, the little ice age that the lefty climate nerds don't want to acknowledge, but pretty much all you have to do is read history and you see it happen. The little ice age ended around 1850. It included some really awful times where New York Harbor froze over.
Right.
Okay, so not exactly good times. So in the 1890s, the media were talking, because there were scientists were talking about this. It was a cold time, and they're talking about another ice age. So that meant people living in that era who remembered 1850, were like, oh, crap, this is not good. This could be bad. We just remember the little ice age. Then you get into the 1920s and 1930s, the Dust Bowl era, and they were talking about global warming. And this is a big thing. Scientists, so the media hype global warming. Then you get into the post-World War II Cold War America, and things turned cold, and they were back talking about global cooling, up to and including around the time of the first Earth Day in 1970. So I mean, the whole history of this. Then, after a few years of that, and there's this vague era where in the 70s, where then some of them were talking about cooling, some of them were talking about warming. You heard cooling stories up into the 90s from the media, but then you start talking about warming, and then they realize, oh, that doesn't work either, because people are reminding us about cooling and warming and cooling and warming. So then it became climate change. And this is the most self-supporting media claim in the history of mankind. Because climate change, climate has always changed. It just happens. If climate didn't always change, we wouldn't have come out of the ice age. If climate didn't change, and by the way, nobody driving around SUVs at the time. The Earth came out of the ice age. Climate always changes. But what it enables the media to do, and they do it, and ABC is the worst of this bunch, any single weather story, they'll hype. Oh my gosh, there's flooding in Dubuque. Oh, it snowed in Colorado. Yeah, because that never happens. There's somewhere in the Northeast, there's some sort of fountain, maybe it's the Midwest, I don't know, there's some sort of fountain that grows. Oh, it's in New York. Fountain that grows every year because it gets cold. They keep this fountain stays, and it just adds ice, and it gets taller and taller. And last year, the year before, it reached a height nobody had ever seen. And so, we get winters like that. We get winters like we had the last couple of winters, where you get close to having an all-time freezing percentage of the Great Lakes. And the media talk about global warming, and people laugh at them. But they do. They will say any weather event. Remember, after Hurricane Katrina, we just had the 10th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina. After Hurricane Katrina, Al Gore famously said how we're going to get more of these. And yet we've now passed a 10-year time period where we've not had a serious hurricane strike America. And yes, Hurricane Sandy was Category 1 when it hit America. It just happened to hit in a place it doesn't ordinarily hit, which is why it did a lot of damage. So when you talk to journalists about this, they say, well, there's been more serious weather events. And then when you point out to them that that's a flat-out lie, they just say, oh, you're a denier. You'll see actual professional news organizations use the term denier to the point where finally even the Associated Press style manual came out and said that's not accepted terminology because, of course, it basically says you're a Holocaust denier, which was the intention of people who did that. So that takes us to the climate conference where from the first night on, they covered the first night, ABC, CBS, and NBC, 15 minutes of the climate conference. because they only acknowledge there's one answer, and anybody who doesn't agree with them, because media know everything. You know, if you know any reporters, you know that they're right 110% of the time.
Actually, that leads into my question. Since you've been an editor and you've been involved for 20 years in media, print, online, and whatever, you've obviously dealt with a lot of reporters, be they actual beat reporters or if they work out at wherever, a location, or if they're just people who provide stories to you. What's the general, I mean, are these guys idiots? Are they smart? I mean, what's the deal?
There's a hubris in journalism, and I'm sure I'm affected by it too.
Mm-hmm.
You get a bunch of journalists around, and they will sit there and they will make fun of everything and everybody. They, as a collection, journalists think they're smarter than every other group. So, they'll either criticize the politicians. I mean, he's an idiot. Oh, she's an idiot. Oh, they're idiots, or whatever. They'll criticize politicians. They'll criticize science. They'll criticize anybody. So if you disagree with them, you're an idiot. You're a knuckle-dragging idiot. You're a moron. And that's how they will treat you in copy, even if they're supposed to be theoretically neutral. So what you've got. Do you remember the Journo list?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Run by Washington Post, Ezra Klein again.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at what people had to say in those comments, particularly Dave Weigel, who oddly enough got rehired by the Post, it's all digs on politicians. They hate this person. Oh, they hate that person. Oh, this person's stupid. It's because that is how journalists think. And so the idea that they're ever wrong, if you ever criticize a journalist, they get the hair up on the back of their neck. I'm not wrong. They could have misspelled your name.
Oh, it's happened.
And they would have blamed you.
I've had my screaming matches with a couple. I was on my local hamlet's budget committee, and we're a well-to-do town, but very skinflint when it comes to spending money. And this particular very progressive local reporter tried to take me to task for saying, you should be taxing your citizens more and sending that money to places that need it, like L.A. and New York and Chicago, because there are people who are hurting there. And I keep saying, but they elect these stupid people who spend far more than they take in and make these deals with unions and yada, yada, yada. And literally a screaming match in the parking lot over this. And he just couldn't believe that it's these people's faults. It's my fault for not giving them more money. And you're right, it is a groupthink.
And, I mean, ultimately, journalists think... and entertainment people, it's the same mindset. They think that every solution has a government solution.
Yes.
Every problem. Government can fix that. But then when they write about government, they'll write about government corruption. They don't connect the dots. Oh, well, let's see, the VA is corrupt and incompetent. Oh, let's see, the Secret Service is corrupt and incompetent. Oh, let's see, the Health and Human Services is corrupt and incompetent. IRS, corrupt and incompetent. You start going down the lines like, well, wait a second, maybe just government has gotten too big. Oh, no, we got the way to solve this is get another government agency. Spend more money. They think government, the general attitude about government is the heroes. The government can take all of your money and then dole it out to you. They want, and you look at, they go to these events, these climate events, and they embrace whatever craziness the climate people are talking about. Climate people want us to live in urban areas. They don't want you to live in suburban or rural areas. They want us to jam us all in, packed in like Japanese sardines. Packed in wall to wall, each of us having only a couple hundred feet. Or if you live in a more rural area, have you seen the stories on the small house movement?
Oh, yeah. I've seen it on HGTV. I'm like, God, no.
No one wants to live. I'm 6'2". I live in a house. I'm single. I live in a house. I want room. I want space. I mean, why not just put me in a prison cell?
I'm up against a hard break, Dan, so why don't you let us know how people can reach you, and we'll say bye.
People can find me writing on newsbusters.org and on foxnews.com. You can find me on Twitter, Dan Gainor, DANGAINOR, no holds barred.
All right. Well, thanks so much for taking time to talk to us. Have a great weekend.
Thanks. You do the same.
All righty. Bye-bye. The opinions expressed on this program are those of the speakers and not necessarily those of CNHT, GrokTALK.com, this station, or anyone else for that matter. From the CNHT studios in Concord, New Hampshire, just a few blocks from the New Hampshire State House, this is
GrokTALK.
Oh, feel the power.
Oh, I can feel it.
Our moment of triumph approaches. It's
GrokTALk.
This is a coalition of New Hampshire taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is a repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at gerardatlarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
Welcome to GrokTALK on Saturday, December 5th, 2015. Here's a few short stories to help fill the time. The New Hampshire State Ballot Law Commission on Tuesday quickly threw out a former New Hampshire Republican Party chairman's challenge to Donald Trump's eligibility to be on the GOP First in the Nation primary ballot, according to WMUR News 9 in Manchester. Commission Chairman Brad Cook asked Fergus Cullen, the former NHGOC chairman, "Why are you here? This isn't about whether we like Donald Trump. If Republican enough is what this commission had to do, heaven forbid we'd be here all day. You were challenging someone's filing," Cook said. "This commission is not the forum for speeches or electioneering or advancing any other candidate. If you have any information that he is not, in fact, a Republican, then share it with us." Cullen replied, "I do not have that information." The commission immediately voted to dismiss the challenge. The irony has not gone unreported. Check GrokTALK.com for our take. Geraldo Rivera has just lost his talk radio show at New York City broadcasting giant WABC. Rivera says he had a handshake deal with ousted Cumulus media chief John Dickey, which the new management won't honor. Chad Lopez, the market manager for Cumulus, told Radio Inc., "We offered Geraldo a new renewal commensurate with the value of his show, which he regretfully chose not to accept." Cumulus gave Rivera the axe on Thanksgiving Eve. Not to worry, Geraldo will still be gas-bagging the liberal narrative over at Fox News. The New Hampshire Union Leader is reporting that in a town hall meeting at an American Legion post, Republican presidential candidate John Kasich fielded a couple of questions about how the U.S. should go about defeating Islamic State terrorists. "I've been very critical of one person who's been criticizing Hispanics and Muslims," he said, referring to the GOP frontrunner. "Let's watch our rhetoric. Let's help those who want to engage with us." Note to Governor Kasich, the person in question has been polling exponentially higher than you with primary voters, registered voters, fat kids, skinny kids, kids who climb on rocks. Probably because you are seeking help from those in the establishment with whom you want to engage and not regular American taxpayers. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Just look for Granite Rock, and be sure to listen to past programs on Spreaker, Stitcher, iTunes, TuneIn, and iHeartRadio.
Steve McDonald here. Ever notice how some Democrats get all worked up about photo ID? No, not the ID you use to access all those government services like unemployment, Social Security, welfare, and even Obamacare. I'm talking about photo ID to vote. And I don't think it's the photo part. Democrats love photos. President Obama's got a real nice one of himself with the pretty blonde Danish prime minister that he took while his wife Michelle was sitting right next to him scowling. So if it's not the photo, it must be the ID. But the only reason to object to the ID would be if you were either not who you said you were, or you didn't live where you said you lived, which might explain why some Democrats get so upset when you ask for one. I say some Democrats because a recent poll in New Hampshire reported that almost 60% of registered Democrats and 75% of all registered voters thought voter ID was a good idea. So if it's not the New Hampshire residents, or even Democrats who oppose voter ID, it must be the kind that can't get elected unless they can get people to vote in your town who have no business voting there. I'm Steve McDonald for Granite Rock, and we'll keep shining the light on them for you.
From the CNHT studios in Concord, New Hampshire, just a few blocks from the New Hampshire State House, this is
GrokTALK.
Three, two, one.
We'd like to welcome you to another edition of GrokTALK, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GrokTALK.com. We are your feared extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio microphone stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for more news and opinion you could only get from GrokTALK.com.
GrokTALK.
Hey, hey, hey! We are GrokTALK. Skip has had to leave, but we're going to continue to do our 2 hours into the 11 to noon hour. I am still here with Mr. I forgot who I was here with. Mike Rogers and Rick Olson. Wow, that was crazy. Anyway, gentlemen, we have an hour to kill. We have 2 segments. And there's always plenty to talk about. Of course, we had some great guests on today. If you missed them, stay tuned for the podcast later today. Dan Gainor from the Media Research Center, great interview with that. Before that, we had Kieran Lalor on. He's a former Iraq. He's still an Iraq vet. He's always going to be an Iraq vet, but he was also run for Congress. He's a legislator in New York. And he is a New York co-chair. So great to have him on as well. We were going to have Michelle Lavelle on, but she would have been on at 9:30. Well, we still didn't have power, so I had to call her and tell her to powder. Take a powder. We'll do it again another time.
Try that next week.
She's like, okay, great, no problem. Thank you so much. So appreciate that.
I think it was Kieran said it. Trump doesn't really need the media. Actually, maybe that was
Dan. Yeah,
Trump doesn't really need the media. He could afford to diss the New York Times if he wanted to, and he probably will just to make the point. Rumor has he might even diss the next debate and say, "I don't need you bozos," because the Republican Party really isn't behaving towards them anyway. He took the pledge; they didn't seem to take it seriously. But here's the thing I was trying to get to. He lives rent-free in their heads. He doesn't need paid media. They cover him anyway. They're like Pavlov's dogs. Every time he says something, they drool. He's going to get coverage no matter what.
That's absolutely correct. And I mean, you can't have a better story than to be in a position where you just walk around and be yourself.
Yeah.
And the voters flock to you, and the media covers it. With disdain, but still, it's coverage. I mean, you're getting your message not out just to people in new media, but to everybody else. The people who watch the regular media who weren't registered voters and are registering because of Trump because they want to vote for him.
Yeah, I that's incredible. The Republican Party doesn't realize that one way or another, Trump is growing the Republican Party. As long as he stays in through the primaries, people are going to register Republican in those states where there's where you have a chance to be unregistered, or unaffiliated, should I say? They're going to register Republican just to vote for Trump, and that's going to enlarge the Republican Party. And potentially, if he stays in all the way, he's going to pull in the Reagan Democrats that nobody else seems to be able to grab.
Yeah, that's that whole big tent thing.
Yeah. Exactly. That's not to say I'm praising Trump for president particularly, but he has a pull, and that makes it even more ludicrous that idiots like our former and current party chairs come out. I mean, there were quotes by Sununu. I listened to my Limbaugh a little bit in retrospect, and he had a quote from the Gnome earlier in November, who clearly doesn't get it and was disparaging Trump. And he's the one that basically said, I need to dissolve the electorate and choose another because he doesn't understand them anymore. There was Fergus Cullen, who wanted to try and boot Trump off the ballot and got laughed out of court in 2 minutes. And there was Jennifer Horn coming out there and saying, I don't understand this. This is not a winning combination. The people are stupid, basically. It's not the exact word she used, but basically the people are stupid. What's the matter with good, upstanding Republicans like Chris Christie and John Kasich and Marco Rubio?
I think they're having their own normalcy bias. That's what I think.
Yeah. I think maybe that's it, Rick. And I said, to the to Kieran Lalor that Lalor, that I would like to see a much smaller debate stage. If you look at the ones that can really debate effectively, the ones that have got, as Van Jones said of Fiorina, a mind so sharp it should be registered as a weapon, or Ted Cruz, who's a national champion debater, Marco Rubio, whether you want to vote for him or not, who can really hold his own and knows how to smack trolls aside with a plumb. Trump, who nobody's going to push around. And Christie, because nobody's going to push him around either. You can swipe the rest away. Nobody wants Kasich. He's going to drive your ratings down because he's annoying.
If I hear one more, anecdote about how his father delivered the mail and everybody, it takes us back to the old Dick Gephardt days when my father delivered milk, and you never hear anybody saying, my father was a bootlegger and he delivered whiskey during Prohibition. You're not hearing. It just gets old.
Grandpa worked for the mafia.
Yeah, delivered liquor.
Some of them literally might be. If you come from Chicago, that's probably true.
Well, Kennedy's down in Boston. I mean, I can hear Jack Kennedy out there now. Yes, my daddy, he delivered liquor. He was a bootlegger. But I mean, it's take like Donald Trump. Love him or hate him, you got to admit, no candidate has brought a dynamic to the races. I mean, think about this. All these presidential races, all the candidates are scripted. They do focus groups to figure out what words to use and what words not to use. Not Donald Trump. Somebody says something he doesn't like, he calls him a loser. Meanwhile, Joe Sixpack's sitting in the living room going, yeah, I like that guy. He says what's on his mind. People, and they don't get it.
They don't understand that if they want Joe Sixpack, whether they be Democrats or Republicans, to vote for him, they need to run somebody who tells it like it is.
Yeah.
The entire reason that Scott Brown won his first election in Massachusetts is because he drove around in a pickup truck. He appeared to be in favor of the Constitution. He appeared to be telling it like it was, and he had crossover appeal to Democrats.
Sure.
Meanwhile, the Democrats ran the worst candidate in a century and lost to him. Every time since, he thought that he ought to try and appeal to those Democrats by crossing over and running to the left of the Democrat candidates, and of course he's lost in a landslide. Trump doesn't waver. You may not agree with all of his positions. You may not, as Fergus didn't, agree with some of his past positions. But the bottom line is the guy is passionate, does care about America without a doubt. Whether he'd be right on every issue, who knows? But he's passionate and he cares, and he's not giving in. And that's wonderful. And, the best quality of Ben Carson, and I do not choose to vote for Ben Carson. I think he's too naive and all over the map. But the best quality of Ben Carson is when he says something, he stands behind it. When he said we shouldn't have a Muslim or somebody who follows Sharia law, specifically the Sharia law, as president, he stood behind it and clarified it and said Sharia law is fundamentally incompatible with the U.S. Constitution. And more power to him. As I say, there's other reasons why I wouldn't support a Carson presidency, but I like the fact that he stands up for what he said.
Yeah, I'm supporting Vermin Supreme.
Yeah, you said that, Ponytopia and all that.
Yeah, he promised a pony to
everybody,
everybody, and I've never eaten a pony. So
yeah. So the question is whether you get ponies and unicorns or whether you get to shovel up the stuff off the road.
Right. Yeah.
Right out front when the power goes out.
Exactly.
What Mike was alluding to regarding Governor Sununu was on November 30th. Breitbart reported that former Governor John Sununu said, "I assume that even the Trump supporters want this country to move in a different direction. If Trump is the nominee, we lose. As Republicans, we lose the Senate. We lose most of the House, and we lose the presidency. It is nice to go for somebody that has hot rhetoric that makes you feel good, but this is somebody that has turned off 80% of America. He may have the support of 25% of Republicans, which is about 12% of America, but 80% of America really does not like this man." Now, not a month before that, the same Governor Sununu said, "I have no feeling for the electorate anymore. It is not responding the way it used to. Their priorities are so different that if I tried to analyze it, I'd be making it up."
And he was on a talk show somewhere very early in November that Rush caught a quote of. And again, the guy's completely out in almost left field where the Rhinos sit.
He's pretty close to left field.
Yeah, wondering what the heck's going on.
All right, we're going to take a really short break. We'll be right back with more of this fun conversation. Stay tuned.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at gerardatlarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
This is a coalition of New Hampshire taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is a repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
GrokTALK, Saturday, December 5th. Check out granitegrok.com on Facebook and or Twitter. Just look for Granite Grok. I also just look for GrokTALK. You could look for GrokTALK. You'll probably still find it, but search Granite Grok. We are also on Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iTunes, and iHeartRadio. And, of course, Ustream, which is, if you're watching the program, how you're seeing us right now. And, of course, Ustream archives a couple weeks' worth of shows, but after that they drop off because we don't pay the premium price to get rid of the commercials and keep all that stuff. But that's, the situation we're in. You could donate, and we could try to save up a bunch of money to do that.
If we could get a handful of subscribers, then maybe we should try that. We could pay Ustream every month, and there'd be no ads.
A couple paid subscribers, maybe some paid ads on the site. Would give us an opportunity to make all the money, and we would throw it right back into the program. We'd throw it into the site, and because this is our hobby, we're going to do it whether the site makes money or not. And
we challenge the Trump, Cruz, Fiorina, Carson, Rubio campaigns to put up ads. We dare the Kasich campaign.
You can send us an ad
to put up an ad.
You can send us an ad. We'll play it. You're going to pay us play it. We'll read an ad. We'll
John Kasich, the man with the perpetual frown.
Yes, what do they call that? I want to say standing bitch face, but that's not the term.
Resting
bitch face.
Resting bitch face.
Resting bitch. He has resting bitch face.
Yes.
So he's always like grumpus.
Grumpus, yes.
Yeah. I'm just here looking at the Real Clear Politics national average, and Trump isn't merely holding; he's levitating.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
I can see it from here.
It's incredible. Let me just put it in front of the Steve cam for a second.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
As I said, remember, Governor Sununu said, "I have no feeling for the electorate anymore. Their priorities are so different that if I tried to analyze it, I'd be making it up." And that's what he's doing. He's making it up.
No.
That was a moment of honesty.
It was, but let me just say this. Governor, it's very simple. The electorate is the same electorate that gave you the apparent winning hand in 2010 when you were the party chair.
Yes, they are.
The reason you did so well is because you didn't go out of your way to tick them off during that election period.
Which you did immediately after.
And
ever since.
Yeah, and therefore you got a rousing victory in the State House, which gave you Bill O'Brien as Speaker, who got the budget under control, but the party hacks couldn't stand because he actually told the truth. It gave you new Tea Party congressmen and senators that the D.C. Beltway got indigestion over, that Trent Lott said we'd have to co-opt.
And they did.
And by and large they did, especially Kelly.
Big time.
Yep.
But it's not that you don't understand the electorate; it's that you don't want the message they're telling you. That's really it. But Trump is levitating, which brings me back to something that rumors denied by one of the parties. Read articles about a week ago that Karl Rove was helping to put the Carson campaign in contact with Steve Wynn, who is one of Trump's arch nemesis, arch rivals, in order to secure additional financing. Because, my read, not what was in the article, my read, they're both desperate.
Yep.
Carson's desperate because his numbers are going down. Rove is desperate because Trump's numbers aren't going down.
Right.
and guess what? It hasn't done anybody any good.
Well, I would agree. The establishment, the NHGOPE, the GOP, they're in a panic.
Oh, yeah.
Because they don't understand it. They don't get why their moderate message doesn't sell with the base. Right now,
they have a tin ear. They choose not to get it.
Right, and it's like
they know full well.
It's like Dan said about the media.
Mm-hmm.
They have this hubris, this arrogance, that they believe they're right. When they're together, they're always right, and nobody else can tell them different. And it's destroying the party. And unless, there's a petition out to get rid of Jennifer Hornigan. Every couple months we get this.
Yeah.
Get rid of leadership. We've got 2 committeemen that have to go. We've got, half the state committee most of the state committee is made up of county chairs and some city chairs, and we can't do anything about them. But these people need to go.
And a bunch of hacks. And let's not forget that one of the members of the executive committee is there by Chairwoman Fiat, in as much as the New Hampshire Young Republicans elected their board. They put forward their delegate to the NHGOP committee, and the NHGOP committee said,
we don't like him.
No. We get to choose who represents you.
Just because they don't like the guy.
You don't get to choose who represents you. What? And that's the way the party elites work.
It's pretty sad.
It is.
And now Juliana Bergeron is the executive director. So I don't know. I haven't seen much. I don't think we've seen much.
Hang on. Can you be as executive director and a national committee woman at the same time?
Apparently.
Well, apparently you can do whatever you want.
Does that mean that Jennifer's run out of people that
Jennifer has a phone and a pen? Apparently, she can just do whatever she likes.
Yeah, but more to the point, has she run out of people that she hasn't pissed off? Because they've gone through a whole bunch of executive directors the last couple of years.
Well, Matt Mowers came up just to sow the ground for Christie, and so he was sort of a temp anyway.
Well, and he was very successful because Christie was one of the ones on the short list of people that Jennifer wanted to put up, anybody but Trump. Mm-hmm. And furthermore, he somehow managed to corrupt the union leader because the union leader came out for Christie. And don't get me wrong, out of many of the governors running, Christie's better than a lot, or of the crowd running. He's still not my favorite.
No, but I mean, like Keene, for example, we saw Kendall Lane.
Yeah, we have to talk about that
come out and endorse Hillary Clinton, and and I'm like, I've known Kendall Lane a lot of years, and like I said in the memo, his brother was a district court judge there, and I was a deputy sheriff around that time, and so I used to see some performances there, but I mean. They've always, Jane Lane ran that's Kendall's ex-wife. She ran for state senate. She tried to unseat Klesson, Junie Blaisdell in 1992, 93, back when the Clintons got elected, and that didn't fly. But one of the things I noticed being involved with the Cheshire County Republicans and being as active as I was, I thought, wow, a lot of these people aren't even real Republicans, I mean, that's how long this has been going on, 23 years.
Well,
and they've have a track record of being total rhinos over there in Keene.
That's because that's a Democrat part of the state. So essentially, if the Democrat ballot is too crowded and you're a bit moderate, you put your name down on the Republican ballot, and that's how you get elected.
Well, heck, they do that in Ware now. So
here's the thing, though. A lot of that Democrat enclave has to do with Keene and Keene State and all the academia there, all the Kool-Aid slurping academic professors and everything associated with that.
They're rioting students.
But when you get out into like Swansea, Westport, Winchester, Hinsdale, Chesterfield, Westmoreland, Walpole, when you get out into Cheshire County, there are the Republican numbers are staggering. Take Rindge, New Hampshire. Okay, back during that election cycle, while everything was going to Clinton, Rindge went to Bush like on an 80-20 split. And Rindge, it's, Rindge, Fitzwilliam. Fitzwilliam's kind of been littered with, Health and Human Services liberals that claim to be Republicans, but they're not. And then you have Troy, New Hampshire. We just call that Troylet. But
so when you say Health and Human Services liberals, do you mean people that believe in compassion, or do you mean
people that believe in re-engineering families?
Or
in other words, we're going to take your kids away because you didn't give them oatmeal, and we're going to give them to those two lesbians over there.
Or did you mean parachute dropped voters that HHS had insinuated into those areas, which is what they're trying to do everywhere by promoting things like workforce housing and trying to dumb down areas where people have self-selected into a relatively quiet, peaceful, upscale neighborhood. Oh no, you can't have a quiet, peaceful, upscale neighborhood. That's too white. We're going to take away your privilege and drop some people, and we don't care what color they are. They may not actually be persons of color, but they'll be persons of poverty who are going to commit crimes in your neighborhood.
Well, Keene, I mean, the liberals in Keene are very affluent. You know, if you take a drive up Court Street and you look at those houses, like if you're on your way to Chester Medical Center and you're driving up Court Street, all those houses, they're very Victorian, statish looking houses, beautiful. And I mean, Keene has really unique socialism on a different level. Here's an example when fall comes around and it's time to rake the leaves. You don't rake the leaves. You take your leaf blower and you blow them out to the side of the street. And then the big giant sucker comes along and sucks them all up for you. You know, things like that. And then you have, remember the Robin Hood parking issue that's ongoing. You know, things like that. They gotta get their, thanks for the gumball. It's very affluent liberals that advocate for liberal things, but they stop short of, you have Cheshire Homes too. So that's usually where all the other half lives. They live at Cheshire Homes. It's like a housing project, and and there's a few housing projects around Keene, but Keene's kind of we want to be urban liberal, but we don't have the money sort of thing. That's the best way to describe Keene.
Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, so they've got these upscale houses in this upscale little town, and they're promoting socialism. But how the heck did they get there? They never give a thought to the capitalism that got them those upscale houses?
Oh, no. I mean, Keene was a mill town just like every other town.
Yeah.
It just happens to have a state university in it, and that it collects the kind of people who think that way.
Some of the best shops and restaurants are in those mill buildings.
Yeah.
There's a great steakhouse there in a mill building.
Yeah, sorry about that.
It's okay.
I don't know. I lived in Keene long enough to know that I now I lived on the outskirts. I lived in Swansea. Mm-hmm. And, my humble opinion of Keene is let's nuke it and salt it with salt so nothing grows.
Well, actually, the place I would like to do that to is Washington, D.C. Anytime a country invents a specific political headquarters, like Washington, D.C., Canberra, Australia, and Brasilia in Brazil, it basically is dismal concrete socialist center. Now, okay, Washington's got some beautiful buildings because it was one of the earliest such explicit state headquarters, but nothing good comes out of it. We could do away with the vast federal bureaucracy and salt the ground, turn it back to...
Just leave the monuments.
To marsh. Yeah, that's
it. Another thing about Keene is you hear...
Yes, we're going to break in like 20 seconds.
Okay. You hear bad things about the police department there. At the same time, they have serious problems with the college population. Remember the pumpkin riots and everything?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
You think the Keene Police Department's going to get the funding to deal with that stuff? Absolutely not. We're not militarizing our police. That's their excuse.
All right, stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen. We're heading into the last segment. This is GrokTALK. I'm Steve McDonald here with Rick Olson and Mike Rogers. We'll be right back. Blah, blah, blah.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
This is a coalition of New Hampshire taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is a repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Rock Talk.
Welcome back to GrokTALK, brought to you by the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers and the bloggers at Grok.com. Check us out on Facebook and Twitter, and of course, the massive library of past programming at Stitcher, Spreaker, iTunes, TuneIn, and iHeartRadio.
Soon we shall have a library to rival the Limbaugh Museum.
I doubt that, but hundreds of hours.
You can hear our rantings and opinionated thoughts anytime, any place.
Correct. You listened to last week's flashback episode. I forget which one it was now, but it was like the first. No, it wasn't the first show. I'll go look. Anyway, we got 30 minutes left to kill, plus or minus about 5. And there's probably about a trillion things we could talk about. So let's see. Where's my list? I don't have a list.
Well, I'm going to make a prediction. I keep meaning to write about this. That give or take, how well Trump stays in the race, we're going to see a battle this spring, a clash of the Cuban titans, because I believe that the Rhino wing of the party is going to be left with no other choice but to back Rubio. Indeed, the Capitol Hill staffers voted at the end of October that they believed in an internal poll that Rubio was going to be the standard bearer.
Well,
Republican and Democrat staffers alike, by a large margin, thought that Rubio would be the standard bearer. It was most fascinating. Meanwhile, Cruz, slowly catchy Trumpy, he is working his way up the rankings. And, the only two lines that have got a steady positive trend are Cruz and Rubio. The others are basically either losing altitude or barely treading water. Carson's on the way down. Trump just continues to levitate, denying flouting the rules of electoral physics.
Yep.
I'm just discovering something interesting about...
Anyway, let me shut up.
Seems like a lot of these candidates are waiting it out. I mean, theoretically, they should just suspend their campaign, shouldn't they, some of them?
Well,
the Santorum is at 0. There's a couple
Graham
is at 0.
Pataki.
They're all at 0, technically, in RCP. I know you just had it up. I don't know if you still have it. But
yeah, there's
in state polling, they might tick a 1 somewhere. But I mean, if you're Rick Santorum, for example, and you're in Iowa, okay, where you don't win without the evangelicals, if you're still in the bottom, a month and a half, 2 months before the caucus, you're wasting somebody's time.
Yeah, and somebody else's money. Santorum got himself on the map last time because he did very well in Iowa. He didn't necessarily win, but he did very well. And he did okay in New Hampshire. And let's face it, he was the last conservative standing. I don't know whether he thinks he can repeat that and be the last conservative standing, but I don't think so.
Somebody's telling him that to keep a job because Ted Cruz is sucking up the evangelical vote in Iowa, and there isn't going to be any left for Santorum.
No, we'll be seeing a lot more of Pastor Rafael Cruz this coming year, I suspect.
I got to meet him.
You did?
Yeah, at Liberty Harbor.
Isn't he fabulous?
He is.
Yeah, if you look, folks who as Steve said, our vast archives, we have coverage from last year of a rather nice small event at Diane Bitter's home, and where I was lucky enough to arrive early and sit down and interview the pastor before the event started. So if you look for Rafael Cruz,
compelling story.
Oh yeah, in our archives. You'll see some actual one-on-one interview recorded about a year ago.
Yep. Quick housekeeping: the episode that I posted last week, the flashback, because we took the Saturday after Thanksgiving off.
Yeah.
I posted an old episode instead, edited slightly with some of the newer music because it didn't have any of that stuff. Didn't have any, actually, because it was the first episode we did from this room in April of 2013.
Oh, wow.
So if you want to go before Mike even started coming up every week, did the show, it was just me and Skip. So, and we had a couple guests. We had Kevin Bloom here and Alan Kolb and Gary Lambert.
Oh.
So.
Yeah, when Gary was running for Congress.
Right, way back. You can check that out if you want to see how things started. 123 episodes before this one, and so endeth the housekeeping. Anyway.
Yeah, no, it's fabulous, and let me put in a plug. Steve basically regenerated GrokTALK after trying to do everything by phoning into Skip's house on a Saturday was becoming more and more burdensome. Steve found us our location and got us set up here and got us on a roll, which we've been on ever since.
We have. The problem with Skip's was he was trying to do everything himself, which was only part of the problem because, you're going to do a show for 2 hours, and it's on the side of a mountain in Guilford, and it's 2+ hours from my house, a little bit longer for you, and that's not a commute you want to make in the summer every Saturday, let alone in the winter. So it was impractical.
And the
to
guests
do that
and
there.
the guests were never in studio. It was always
by phone. And anytime we tried to have a guest in studio, they'd get lost because the GPS didn't know where he lived, and so things were. It just wasn't. It was a great idea, but it wasn't the way. We got the execution wrong.
Mm-hmm.
We needed something a little bit more centralized, and this is the capital of the state.
The capital.
It's in the center of the bottom half of the state.
Right, it's more or less in the population center of gravity of the state. Maybe Manchester is the actual population.
It's a reasonable distance to get somebody to drive to be on an internet radio show for 30 minutes.
It absolutely is, and that's key. And it's of course now in danger of becoming the third world capital of New Hampshire.
Rolling blackouts and brownouts. Thank you. I can't wait to read why that was. That was bizarre to go outside and just. Looking up and down. I mean, you drove up it with no lights, but you weren't here yet. And I walk outside, and I'm like, I want to just see if it's a building thing or if it's at the whole street. I only see the traffic lights. I'm looking. Everybody's just kind of standing around. I'm like, great. Welcome to Concord.
Indeed.
All right. So, again, let's see. We talked about Fergus. We talked about, of course, the climate thing and with Dan Gainor, We've touched on San Bernadino. We've touched on the gun thing. If you want to go to Ustream, we did do like 35 minutes out in the other room with thanks to Mike's tablet, streaming on Ustream only.
So your mileage may vary.
Your mileage may vary. You may see some rather broken audio, video, blah.
Cell speed was somewhat down because it was the only internet for anybody, and they were all on their smartphones.
We were trying very desperately to get something on the air for you. That's why we're still here now. We could talk about Croydon, which is an interesting topic.
There's actually a follow-on to the climate talks thing. There's a longish piece on American Thinker this morning dissecting why the TPP is even worse for us than we thought, because not in those 6,000 pages, I take poetic license.
It's a lot.
It's 5,000 and quite a lot. There are sections allowing for the creation of bodies to enforce multi-party agreements, including climate agreements. In other words, if Congress accedes to this trade pact, it's way more than a trade pact, and whatever Obama agrees in Paris could be enforced upon us. Regardless of what happens here, we need the Republicans to hold firm, and we hope the hell we don't get a Democrat blowout in Congress.
It's by Howard Jesse and Raymond Richmond. It's called "Obama Will Use TPP to Enforce His Climate Agreement."
Right, and I say traditionally Republicans will confer trade promotion authority on any president who asks for it, including Democrats, and traditionally Republicans will vote for free trade agreements. This is not a free trade agreement. This is a vast, complex administrative sprawl that is supranational in nature and is bad to its core. You want a trade agreement, you can do it in a few pages. You do not need 6,000 pages to do a trade agreement that says, you know what, we'll reduce our tariffs if you reduce yours. We'll protect your patents if you protect ours. That's the kind of thing you need.
Intellectual property rights, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, that's what you need in a trade agreement. You do not need 6,000 pages of garbage. And the stuff that's in there, a bit like Dodd-Frank and other legislation that's snuck through under this president, it contains the seeds of our destruction. Dodd-Frank, because, as Carly Fiorina pointed out to me in her answers at the NHFRW, it's not so much what it attempts to do and messes up the banks. It's the panel that's created, that's self-funding, that gets money directly from the Fed, the board that's got the powers to investigate anything, anywhere in the financial world, including your personal financial affairs, to look for unfairness or whatever, or fraud. And, the TPP is the same way. It's a vast, sprawling document that's going to create boards and panels that are going to rule over us.
Yeah, this says it regulates trade, the environment, immigration, patents, copyrights, and labor laws.
Right. Since Clinton, Democrats have attempted to put labor laws into trade agreements because they've wanted to try and rescue the poor, oppressed workers of the rest of the world. This is far more sweeping and far more dangerous. We have to.
Well, don't you think they also want labor laws because it informs and empowers unions, and unions is the way the communists get to power?
Oh, absolutely it is. But if you look back at the trade agreements that the Clinton era that they tried to tweak, stuff that they tried to package into NAFTA, for example, it was more a case of imposing our ideas of how workers should be treated upon other nations. In this case, it's far more the idea of imposing regulations, socialist regulations, on us as well, and it's very bad for us. So, we just have to make sure that Congress and the Senate are going to be strong enough to reject this or make it unpalatable. The date for this supposed quick up or down vote keeps moving out, by the way, because they're afraid of it during the election period, whether it be the primary or even the general. Whether that means it'll go through quickly in the lame duck session is the kind of thing I would worry about, because at some point...
That's how we got Michelle's school lunch program.
Yeah. At some point, if this gets ratified, we are going to have to do some serious legwork. We're going to have to abrogate stuff that has the power of treaties and tell the rest of the world that we don't care, it's not constitutional, it'll never fly in America, and don't pester us. Oh, and if you ever want to sell us anything, don't try and impose any penalties.
There you go. We're not going to buy your crap. That's most of your market, probably.
Yeah, exactly. For that, I think I'd like to see a President Trump stand up and say it.
He would, too.
For almost everything else, I'd be happy to see Cruz up there.
This is crap. We're not going to do it.
Yeah.
Well, then they do the same thing. They go, okay, well, we're not going to sell any of your stuff. And we'll be like, well, we'll be busy buying our own stuff because we're not going to have your stuff. And you get into this.
And then they'll get to see how crap their stuff is.
That's right.
Yeah.
You get this whole trade war thing going on, and it's we'll see what happens. Should be interesting. But TPP, I'll go and read that. I just bookmarked it. Take a look, and we'll have to do some. Yeah, we'll have to write some posts about that thing.
Yeah, a couple of articles further down. There's a piece on why the liberals want their eco legislation so badly, and how Al Gore swore he would be the first eco billionaire with his carbon trading schemes and stuff, in which those things won't ever die. You can't drive a stake through their heart. One way or another, government keeps coming back trying to regulate and tax carbon, and whenever that happens, you have to pay your carbon indulgences, and guess who's standing by to profit? Well, Al Gore.
Yep.
Well, we've got, if things go as they are now, we'll have a national cap and trade scheme imposed on us, and That'll suck. People will be like, wow, it sucks having to deal with the electricity prices you people have up there in New England. They don't understand. They really don't. And all that money just gets sucked up for nothing.
Well, and I still want to see the states stand up and say, we're not going to play.
Well, we're a little ways away from that. We need a Republican governor who would do that, not just.
Well, I'm not just talking about New Hampshire. There's plenty of places with Republican governors that need to stand up and say exactly that, they did.
Yeah,
like
and the rest of the country needs to.
Like they did over the Obamacare exchange. They need to stand up and say, no, this is not constitutional. We're not going to play. We're going to build another coal plant. Have a nice day. We're going to have the lights on when you don't.
We're going to take a break. We'll be right back. This is GrokTALK. Stay tuned.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested, riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
This is a coalition of New Hampshire taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is a repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
All right, coming around the bend on our way home. GrokTALK is brought to you by the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers and the bloggers at GraniteGrok.com. Visit them at cnht.org. We are, of course, at GraniteGrok.com. Check out what we do there. We'd appreciate it. There's a tip jar. It's called Donate Here. Feel free to do that.
Somewhere on the top right of the page.
There's a couple places. And helps pay for this stuff. It doesn't pay us, it pays for the stuff. When we get to the point where it pays for us, you won't care because it'll be that good or that big or that something.
Yeah.
And, if we sell a bunch of advertising and we end up with some extra money, well, that's none of your business. But we need to keep pitching the... here's what we need.
We keep taking these obscene profit timeouts, but we're not making any obscene profits.
Well, no, they're free.
Yet.
There's no profits at all.
There's no profits here whatsoever.
It's a non-profit timeout.
Yeah.
We need somebody who will work on commission and just do advertising. They will find us ads. They will put the ads up. They will rotate the ads out. They will collect the money because nobody has that kind of time. And then they will take a piece of that action. Now, if you're that person... please email Skip or myself, Skip or Steve, one or the other, Skip at GraniteGrok.com, Steve at GraniteGrok.com, and we will have a conversation about that. Because that's what we need, and that would make it easier for us to pay for the server bill, which Skip pays for out of his pocket, and the phone and internet bill, which Skip pays for out of his pocket, or with donations if we have them. And, the rest of us pay for all of our own equipment. Nobody supplies anything to anybody.
No, we pay ourselves to go to
events,
go to events,
come and go. Mileage, gas, wear and tear on our vehicles, our equipment, and ourselves.
Yeah, when you see video up there of an event, somebody traveled there and put up a camera, big or small, put up a board or not, as the case may be, and brought home the goodies for you to watch.
So we're going to keep doing that, but it would be a lot easier, and it'd be easier to get smaller equipment and more efficient equipment, and we'd be able to do more events if we had better equipment that we didn't have to lug around.
Yeah, and
so that's always been the plan, to try to make a more mobile new media workforce, so to speak, and so that's what we're looking for.
And some of us travel so light that one gets accused by the candidate of being a tracker, which I thought was hilariously funny.
Who did that?
Carly. The NHFRW.
Oh, right.
So I'm sitting there in the front row, and I got my Nikon on my little monopod, and I'm twisting it, and following her as she moves about, and I get to ask my question, and before she answers me, she says, "Are you a tracker?" Then she realizes who I am, and just like, yeah.
No, I've interviewed you 3 or 4 times now on internet radio and podcasting, and
I asked the question for our libertarians about her associations with the NSA and CIA, and she gave a pretty good answer.
Mm-hmm. She is very smart.
Yeah.
Very smart.
No doubt.
She could do good things in government someplace, I think, if she continues with that campaign attitude, and you put that person in a place. And then, of course, part of the problem is you're talking about taking somebody. It's like, imagine taking somebody who's really neat and organized and then throwing them into the world's largest dumpster.
Yeah.
And nobody else is helping you. Nobody. I mean, it could break you. It really could,
I don't think so in that case. I don't think so in Cruz's case. And I don't know quite how Trump would handle it, but he'd probably just hire the right people, as he says.
Yes. Sorry. You got to talk to them, show them the hand, that kind of thing. So, all right. Well, he seems like a hands-on guy. Definitely wants to know what's going on in his businesses. And
yeah.
So that's good. He wouldn't be as distant as, say, Obama, who doesn't know anything about what's going on until they put it in front of him.
Well, it's interesting. I swear he sets this stuff in motion, but then sort of somehow stays isolated from it. So when it all goes wrong and blows up, he can be angry about the stuff that he actually wanted to happen.
He pushes the little cartoon snowball off the top of the mountain, and then he just walks off, and it just rolls down and destroys things.
I'm as mad as hell about the...
I'm really upset that did that.
About that avalanche that happened when I pushed that snowball off the top.
But it wasn't me.
No.
I didn't do it. So I have made no effort to attempt to learn how to do an Obama. Really, all you need to do is get the cadence down.
Yeah.
Because of the way he talks, and you can probably pull it off.
Well, let me be perfectly clear.
Yeah, space. Blah, 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 blah. Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, you could almost put a flashing sign, lie begins here.
Right.
Yeah, that's where, here he goes. He's going to obfuscate.
Yeah, he's a piece of work, boy, last week and so. He hasn't said anything right. He just made a complete fool out of himself on a world stage again.
I just get to a point where I've had nothing but complete contempt when his face darkens my TV screen, and I'm very
Hang on,
inclined...
is that a racist comment?
Huh? Is that a what? Racist comment?
Like darkens your doorstep now.
That's going to depend on who you are.
That's true.
And how you hear it.
Absolutely.
So when he darkens my TV screen, I just, I'm inclined to pick up the remote and go, click.
I actually don't tend to watch anything where I'm likely to see his face or hear his voice. I read it. Then I can control how much of it I ingest, and then,
Yeah, you don't have to throw things at the TV as a result.
I've never been a fan of his soaring rhetoric. I'm sorry, and even when he didn't have it, before, during, or after,
I don't regard his rhetoric as soaring. I find it disappointing, halting, inadequate.
Yeah, he was always oversold.
Yeah,
always oversold. And of course, now you see the side effect of that, and a lot of people who fell for it. And not necessarily just before 2012 or whatever, but going on and on and on as he continues to be the president, are like, wow.
Watch the Republicans on the stump. Nearly all of them without teleprompters.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Now, that's people who understand what they're doing, what they're talking about.
I've been to a lot of events where you have one-on-one interviews with candidates, and they're just right off the cuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I say, even down at the bottom of the scale, Pataki was a great interview. He didn't need any notes. Gilmore is surprisingly well-informed and has great policy ideas. He's never going to register on the needle, unfortunately, but as I said, talk about underappreciated. I followed him for a day, and I was very impressed, but, too little, too late.
Well, having run for president has its advantages. He can do some speaking things as a former candidate for president, which gets you a little bit more money.
Yeah, and hopefully it puts some more money into his think tank, freecongress.org, I think, if I get the website right, where they've got some excellent policy options, all fully fleshed out.
Mm-hmm. All right, cool. All right, a couple minutes left. What do we got? What's hot on your mind? Nothing?
Nothing.
Food. Nothing. Food. He's hungry.
Lunch, in his case.
All right, it's lunch talk.
Yeah,
he's hungry. He wants to talk about food. He was asking us where good places to eat around here at the break. We, of course, pointed out that Puppy Love's right up the street. Get a couple hot dogs pretty cheap and a soda. And that usually can fill the tank till you get to someplace else where there's more food and more variety. So not a bad thing at all.
No, well, it's a beautiful day, and I'm going to go do some work around the yard. I think it's...
yeah, you could still do that.
After some of the weather we've had in the last week, this is going to be great.
It is nice out, a little frosty this morning. If you get up early for the last month or so, if you go outside between, say, 5 and 6 in the morning, or like if you take your dogs out or whatever, and you look up in the sky, you will see some really awesome stuff because almost every morning it's been clear. You can see Venus, Mars, occasionally the moon, Jupiter, all in a line.
Well, that line is now more spread out.
It's getting longer and longer and longer, and the moon's back. The moon was there before, and then it came around, of course, obviously, as it does, and it's back again.
Yeah. Sometime back in October, they said the constellation was very similar to what might have been seen as the Star of Bethlehem, where the three planets you mentioned there, Venus, Mars, and Jupiter, were all almost together as a very bright object. Right now, as we're seeing the waning crescent moon, it more looks like Pac-Man chasing the planets up
it's
the
southern
sky.
In the southern sky ish. It's very beautiful. Every morning I go out with the dogs and I just look up and I can see the trees are as a space. I'm like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
And I'm counting. I'm going, there's a lot of planets. It seems like so. Good thing to do if you get a chance. If you're up, get your coffee, put on some mittens or whatever, because it's pretty freaking cold in the morning these days.
It is.
And even on the warmer days like today, take a step outside your back door or your front door, whichever way you have to go. And hopefully you don't have a lot of city lights impeding your view or canopies of trees obscuring the sky. And take a look up and appreciate what's there. You can see Orion, you can see the Big Dipper. It depends on when you go out, obviously, and where you are.
I've seen quite a lot of stars.
You got a lot of sky space in your neck of the woods, and it's not terribly bright, although Nashville is a little bit.
Yeah, you can see a glow on the eastern horizon. If there's the slightest amount of water vapor in the atmosphere, you see this terrific glow from the Nashua direction. And, of course, my yard's pretty well lit anyway. I'd have to actually turn off some of the lights to really enjoy the stars, but it's not bad.
Nope. Okay, I'm going to start setting up the audio for the end of the show. Fill some time. All right. Next week we will be here. We will not be here the Saturday after Christmas and maybe the Saturday after New Year's. I'm still thinking about that one because that's the day after New Year's Day, and I'm trying to decide whether or not I actually want to haul my carcass up here to do a show.
Yeah, especially if you might not have been sober the day before.
Well, I will have been. I don't tend to drink a lot on any given day, and I've been trying to lose a couple pounds, so I've cut a lot of alcoholic beverage beer, which is what I drink, out of my diet. So. Because I don't like those light, uber light beers. I'm like, you go.
If they got no calorie, they probably got no taste.
You go sip, and then all 12 ounces are gone in a second, and you haven't tasted anything yet. And I'm like, I need another one of those,
Wow, not even a bouquet.
Yeah, I know. Nothing. It's just like vapor. So we don't want that. But, all right, let's see. What are we going to play at the end of the show? We're going to play this.
Got some good bumper music here.
We're going to play...
Play the duck song.
The duck song. How about... I got this.
Hang on just a minute. An orbital duck.
Orbital duck. Okay, 47 seconds? Yeah, that's long enough. All right, we have this.
It's not a tumor.
Okay, I didn't play that all day.
No, it was a duck.
That was a duck. That's the duck. No, it was a duck, yeah. Well, it might look like a tumor after...
Uncle Buck's Molly Russell.
After David Campbell runs over it. So...
Poor guy. Yeah, we get some very strange characters on top of our equipment here. We got the Lasky Flasher and the Campbell Duck.
Yes, Ed Lasky, the German professor at UNH Durham.
Yes.
The Flasher.
And, of course, the attention-getting squirrels.
Yes.
Right.
Look, a squirrel. Oh, I'm distracted. Yes, we are just killing time because we really only need another, less than a minute. Less than a minute. So go to cnht.org. Read what they do. Say hi to Ed Nail. Ed's a very hard-working guy. Does a lot of work. We'll have to have him on the show again pretty soon. GrokTALK.com, of course. The leading conservative libertarian blog site in New Hampshire by a huge margin. And check us out. We have new content every day. Rarely do we not have new content every day.
And sometimes when we all feel the urge to write, you get so many new articles in a day, some of them fall off the bottom of the page.
Right.
That happens to me a lot.
They're still there. Yeah. They're still there. All right. Another great show. We survived the power outage. Thanks a lot for staying with us and sticking around, tuning in, or for listening to the podcast after. I'm Steve McDonald here with, I'm not here with Skip Murphy because he had to leave, but I am here with Mike Rogers and Rick Olson, and thanks a lot for tuning in.
The opinions expressed on this program are those of the speakers and not necessarily those of CNHT, GrokTALK.com, this station, or anyone else for that matter. In accordance with Title 17 U.S.C. Section 107, some of the material in this program is used under the Fair Use provision of federal copyright law. Sound effects were either created by the producers of the program, found free in the public domain, or are covered under Attribution 3.0. Most of the music on this program comes courtesy of Creative Commons licensing from Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com.